Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to this work in progress combining Bandai's new old RX-78-2 model kit and the old Regelgu model kit from the 1980s. As you can see, now I've got all the parts here with some black surfacer on here. So I finished up all the modifications and just point out a couple of things here to you guys. Like, for example, from the last video, we were talking about how to modify the Regelgu shoulder armor here onto the Gundam. What I ended up doing actually was using some of the part for the shoulder connection here for the Regelgu, because as it was, I was planning on just having it just straight out like that, but then I thought, well, would be better if it was kind of up at an angle a little bit. So I actually cut off the peg connection for the arm from the Gundam, stuck it inside here, used this connection piece here from the Regelgu kit, and then once this is painted, this is just going to be glued onto the side of here like that, and it should fit there pretty nicely. It should be pretty good. One of the trickiest parts to work on actually was this lower leg armor for the Regelgu, which is going to fit over the Gundam's leg, and just because of the seam line on it was kind of tough. And if you guys remember that this kneecap armor here was actually kind of textured, so I had to like sand that, but then also scribe out this line around there just so that has a bit more of that definition, and then also just getting rid of the seam line going through the back here was kind of rough. And you can still kind of see just some bits of where like the super glue is, but once the paint is on there, that will not be visible. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some paint on here, but obviously because I went ahead and did the surfacer in black, I want this to have like a pretty heavy tone to it. And so for the color scheme, I was thinking I did really like the red of the Regelgu, so I did want to keep some of that. I'm going to use the number 81 here of Mr. Color. This is Russet Red, which is a kind of darker red color here, and then against this black, it's going to keep this pretty dark. And then I wanted to add some blue too, I was thinking, and so I'm going to use this, which is just some of my leftover blue. Kind of has a little bit of like a desaturated navy kind of color, so this is just from my bottle of leftovers. It's just mixed kind of from a lot of other stuff. Anytime I do like a custom mix color of anything that's sort of bluish, if I have some leftover, I just kind of dump it into here. So I couldn't really tell you exactly what color this is, as just a random mix of stuff. And then for the third color, also going to be using some off-white here. This is actually number 315, this being a gray FS16440. It's just a very light gray color here for what is basically going to represent sort of like a whitish kind of color. And then for some accents, I might use either some orange or character yellow. I'm not exactly sure yet, or possibly a mix of the two. I don't really want it too yellow, but I don't want it too orange, so I might just mix a little bit of this for a couple of small accents on there, maybe. Probably not too much, but that's pretty much it. And because I want to keep this in the style of like looking sort of like very 1980s build style, I do want to do some shading on it as well. And obviously with this black base, I'm not going to do like a typical kind of pre-shading, but it's going to be more like a post shading, or what is commonly referred to as just highlighting on here as well. So like for the red, for example, I'll use the red as the base color and then add either a little bit of like off-white or a little bit of yellow to that to just kind of barely change the tone a little bit, and then kind of highlight in some of these larger wide open sections there to give it the look of being sort of shaded. So that's what I'm going to do, because that's kind of a very 80s, that'll give it a kind of very 80s look to it, right? So that's the plan. Let me head over to the airbrush and then we'll get to work on this and we'll come back and see how it's looking. All right, so here's how we're looking so far with the base painting done. As you can see, I've done some assembly here to give you an idea of just kind of how everything's going to be looking so far, just the colors and everything. Went ahead and glued the tanks on. I got a little fogging there from the super glue, but that'll disappear with the gloss coat on there. So basically at the moment, it's ready for some decals and also a little bit more kind of detail painting. Maybe not really all that much is going to be required, but like for example here on the inside, hopefully you guys can see it on the inside of here, it's pretty dark, which I want it to be, and that's just basically because I only focus my painting on the outside. But like in here in particular, I want it to be nice and dark, like not necessarily black, but almost like pretty much black. And the same thing here for the inside of the bell bottoms of the leg, basically. And again, it's dark just because I originally used black primer and then only focused the painting on the outside, which the color of the red came out pretty nice. So I'm happy with how that came out. But yeah, I want these inner areas to be quite dark. So I'm gonna go in with just some thin down enamel paint and just give these a coat of like some basically black around here on the inside of those areas, just because you can still see a little bit of that red in there and everything. So we'll make sure that that's good and dark on these inner areas. And then we're gonna go ahead and start working on some decals on this. We'll put some top coat on it and some panel lining. And that's going to be kind of about it. As you can see on this one here, it looks like in the process of pushing this leg part into here, I popped the seam a little bit on the back, so that's unfortunate. Might try to put some glue on that. I'm not going to be too worried about it just because I'm not going to take this all apart and sand that down and work on this some more and repaint it. So that would be the right thing to do. But I'll put on a little bit of glue, and then just how I'm planning on having this displayed anyway, it's going to be kind of at the back. So not super worried about it, but that is a bit unfortunate there. Anyway, guys, here is the final product on this, and I want to talk about a few things about this project. Basically, the good, the bad, and the ugly, let's say. And we'll start off with the bad, and just being that this build, this finished project here, it's not perfect by any means. There's some imperfections. One of the seams on the back of one of the legs popped open. It's got a little bit of whitening from some super glue around some of the parts where like the arms are connected to the torso. That, and I think you can probably see a little bit of silvering maybe on a couple of the decals here and there. So overall, kind of where did anything go wrong? If there's any one thing that I could point to where things went wrong, maybe just a couple of things in that. Number one, the surfacer that I used for this is a SMS surfacer that I've used before, and when I used it before and then when I used it this time as well, I found the SMS surfacer to be quite gritty. It's like a really high grit. Either it's something I'm doing wrong with the product, or I don't know if any of you guys have used it, but I find it to be quite rough, and I don't know if it's meant to be kind of like lightly sanded after applied, or kind of maybe I'm just not using it correctly, but I just use it just kind of as I typically would for any other surfacer. Ends up making the paint kind of rough, and that can be part of the reason as to why some of the decals, I couldn't get them to be perfectly flat, and why there's some silvering on those decals. Could have spent some more time on those and gotten those perfect, sure, of course, but that was definitely an issue that I ran into with the painting of this kit. Then the other main issue that I ran into was basically just that I just wanted this project from the start to be just kind of quick and simple, and so, you know, it was, even from the start, it wasn't something that I was wanting to invest, you know, a ton of time in to make it, you know, a super technical build and perfect and everything like that. But these flaws aside, I love how this came out. It's great. It's pretty much exactly like what I was going for, and kind of the whole thing that I wanted to go for with this build is I wanted it to look like something from the time period. I mean, we're using an old kit, a new old kit combined with an old kit here, mixing of Bandai's new RX-78-2 kit, which is meant to, you know, look like an old kit from the 80s, just with better color separation. And then we have obviously the old parts from the 1980s Regelgu. And so I wanted the build to look like it had, like it was something out of that you would see in like a magazine, like an old hobby magazine from the 80s kind of thing. And I think for the most part, it's pretty successful at that. I mean, that obviously could have been perfected as well, but that was just kind of the idea that I had when it came to the modeling style for this, in terms of like the painting, the weathering, just being like some very minimal weathering on there, just a little bit of sponge chipping around here and there, and that's pretty much it. I went pretty minimal on the decals too. I mean, you can see them, there's like a fair number, but I didn't want to give it like a ton of like Katoki style decals, that kind of thing. That just kind of decal aesthetic wasn't really a thing until later, like in the 80s. I was trying to look at some reference material too. Actually, a lot of stuff from the 80s didn't really have a whole lot of decals on there. So I wanted to keep it like fairly minimal and just kind of overall pretty simple looking, just kind of compared to what we would typically expect for something more like a kind of modern Gunpla custom build. So anyway, in terms of what I set out to achieve with this, I think the build ends up being fairly successful in that aspect. And so it was a fun custom project, something that I wanted to do. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but I wanted to do a custom project like this for both of Bandai's recent releases of the 144 scale RX-78-2 Gundams. We have this one, which is the 144 scale, like old style, and then we have the 2.0 of the RG, which is another project that is also going to be a similar type of Kitbash project like this that I'm going to be working on now. It's in my project queue. It's not going to be coming out like next week, but that one's going to be a similar project where I'm going to be kitbashing it and just kind of mixing it up a little bit. But that one obviously keeping it in the much more modern style of the RG 2.0. Anyway, so I'm pretty happy with how this build came out. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. One thing that was kind of interesting was the MR decals on there. It was something that was just on a decal sheet that I had for a set of decals for, it was like for the Blazing Shadows and White Dingoes and G3 mobile suits, and so couldn't really figure out exactly what that MR stands for, because typically those letters on this like type of EFSF decal scheme would be for like the ship name, so it'd be like a WB for a white base, but in this case we couldn't really figure out any other like ship that's related to any of those mobile suits or any of those series that would have an MR. The best we could come up with was that it stands for Master Rayer, which is the leader of the White Dingo team. So I guess maybe that's what the MR stands for. Anyway, I'm not really too worried about the being like anything like canonically correct. I guess you could say maybe this is some, a Master Rayer's later unit with a Gundam that was customized with a captured Regelgu. Sure, sort of. You can make up your own canon for it, but basically I just wanted to make something cool and kit bashing parts. And again, like I said, I love the Regelgu just as a mobile suit and the Gelgu kind of generally, but those Regelgu shoulders are always really cool, really unique. Makes for a really interesting silhouette here for this particular mobile suit. So yeah, definitely check out Bandai's new old RX-78-2 144 scale kit if you guys haven't yet. It's pretty cheap, it's a fun little simple build and really nice, just kind of if you want to just leave it as is, or just for doing a kind of custom kit bash like this. It was a lot of fun. You guys can check the link in the video description below. It's USA Gundam Store. We've got, I believe we still have the kit in stock there and lots of other stuff, new, old, and kind of everything else in between. Also kits, paints, and tools and all that good stuff. So check the link in the video description. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of this build, how it ultimately turned out. And thank you guys for watching along. It was a fun build, like I said, and I'm happy with it, but always anxious to hear your guys' thoughts. So thanks so much for all your support. Leaving a like, making sure that you're subscribed. Stay tuned for more. I got some other builds wrapping up at the moment, so you guys should see some more videos like this out pretty soon. But in the meantime, hope you all are having a great day. See you guys later. Bye-bye.